Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So as was just covered, my name is Hamid Shojaee. My Twitter handle is @HamidS. So if you're going to be tweeting, you can tweet at me. You can include hashtag Phoenix Startup Week and hashtag YesPhoenix. If you're really into hashtags, you can also hashtag Chase Basecamp. I'm not sure why you would. You could just do a collection of a bunch of hashtags and call that your tweet. That's pretty popular these days. So I'm going to be talking about how to build a software company and the lessons that I've learned. Let's get started. I want to leave a little bit of room for Q&A towards the end. So I'm going to just run through a bunch of different things that I want to talk about quickly. So first question to ask is why even a software company? And the answer to that is because software is the absolute best business in the world to have or to be in. It's super easy to get into. You can, if you're a software engineer, all you need is a computer and your own skill set to get into the software business. Very, very easy, very low barrier to entry. It's literally hundreds of dollars to get into the software business. It can change the world, as all of our lives have been impacted in one way or another over the past few decades with software. It's highly scalable, meaning you can go from 0 customers today to 1 million customers tomorrow if you happen to have a hit on your hand, as has happened many times in the App Store, as well as web-based applications that literally go from 0 users to millions of users overnight to multi-billion-dollar valuations. It's just an incredible business. It turns out software is also one of the worst businesses in the world for largely the same reasons, because it's so freaking easy to get into. Anyone can get into it from anywhere in the world. So you could be competing with your sort of living style requirements that may be multiple thousands of dollars per month in living expenses with someone in Bangladesh whose living expenses are only $50 per month. And guess what? He can actually sell, or she can actually sell her software to people in the United States who are your neighbors. So that happens all the time. And in fact, it's one of the most competitive businesses in the world for those same reasons. Just taking the iOS App Store as an example, there's over 1.5 million apps in the App Store, right? 1.5 million apps. Think about that for a moment, because if there's even 1,000 different categories of apps, I can't even imagine 1,000 different categories of apps. That means on average, there's 1,500 different apps per category. So how are you going to compete in that market space? So it's very, very competitive. It's very cutthroat. The same software can be sold for thousands of dollars or even given away for free. There's no sort of cost of goods sold, if you will, in the software business. Or it's so low, it's sort of negligible. So the question we're going to try to answer is, how do you build a software company that's going to sustain, that's going to grow, and is going to have the most likelihood of success? That's what my talk is about. If you're not interested in software, this is probably not the right talk for you. To give you a little bit background about myself, I've started 3 software companies. Everyone's limited by their experiences, so my limit is based on these 3 experiences that I've had. I started a software company with my college buddy in 1995 called Vitrix. We went out and raised a bunch of money. We raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to start the company, and over the course of the next 5 years, we raised a couple million, burnt through most of it. We made all sorts of mistakes. It was a software company targeting time and attendance software. By the way, do not Google Vitrix anymore. They gave up on the domain name, and yeah, it's not sufficient for work, NSFW, whatever they call it, anymore. So the image searches is terrible. I was looking for a logo of Vitrix, and I had to dig quite a bit to find my old business cards. But anyway, it was a funded company. After 5 years, I gave up on it and chalked it up into the sort of failed but lessons learned category and went to work for Microsoft. I then started another company called Axosoft in the software development tool space. In Axosoft, we grew that organically and profitably. It's going strong still. It's a multi-million-dollar success story, and we've created a number of different products in there, including Transfer Big Files. One of the side projects of Axosoft was a product called PureChat that has led to the sort of next thing that I'm focused on right now. And PureChat is a funded company. We split it off into its own company, raised money around it. We raised $1.5 million. It's still burning cash, but it's growing very rapidly. We expect to be profitable by the end of this year. So that's my background, and that's sort of where I'm coming at things from. So, of course, the first thing you need to have if you're building a software company or any sort of product-based company is a product. And generally speaking, a better mousetrap will have a much higher probability of success than the same old mousetrap. But it turns out there's something else that makes the product more likely to succeed, and that is this concept of market timing fit. Different than product market fit, market timing fit is just a timing issue of when you're entering into a product market. So every market goes through this growth cycle that looks something like this. The number of potential users that can use the product, we'll call that 100% of all of the users in the universe that can use it. And that number could be, depending on what category you're targeting, it could be in the hundreds, it could be thousands, it could be millions, or even billions. So if you were to look at email, for example, today, has billions of potential users. In the 80s, email was at sort of the very beginning, in the late 70s and 80s. It took it a while to get into here. Maybe this was sort of around the 90s time frame, and growing rapidly in the 90s. Probably by 2000s, it was over here, and today I would say email is over here. So if you were sort of creating an email product, there's a good time to get into this market, and there's sort of a bad time, and there's a very difficult time. And those times look something like this. This is a great time to get into the business, into any market. Think of it as, like in any product category, you can sort of break it down in this way. And there's a bad time, which is right at the stage where the market is already largely saturated, and the people who could use this product category already have a solution. So email today would be one of those markets. And then there's a really hard time, which is at the beginning. Before people even know that they need email, you have to go out there and convince them, if you're trying to build this sort of market category, you have to convince them that this is something that's really good and you need it, before they actually are like, I don't know, what would I do with email? It seems kind of stupid. I could fax things, and I could print memos and give it to my employees. So it's really hard to get started in building the market category. Another example of this might be, early social networks like MySpace and Friendster and others sort of built the sort of need, like helped get the market started, got it into the millions of users. Then Facebook came along and sort of really, Facebook was sort of a later entrant into the game, but like they came in at this great time when the market wasn't already saturated, and they sort of took up a bulk of this market share and now dominate the space. So today it would be too late to get into the sort of social market, media space, right? Trying to compete with Facebook. That doesn't mean you can't disrupt things. For example, in email's case, something like a tool like Slack is coming at it from a different angle. It's not making a better email client. Slack doesn't do email. It's a better communication client, which is sort of the same problem that email is trying to solve. So it turns out that Slack is disrupting email in a sort of coming at it from a different angle and making a lot of headway as a team communication tool, eliminating the need for email internally, at least, for internal communication. And interestingly, Slack is now a team communication tool, which is probably sort of in this sort of time frame. So if you were to go into that space, right now is probably at the later stages of when it might be a good time to get into that space, just as an example of another market space. So part of the reason why there's a great time and sort of bad time is that at the beginning stages of it, you work really hard, a lot of time. So in the case of email, maybe a whole decade before you build maybe 10% of the potential users for that space. Over the next decade, 30–40% more people come online. Over the next decade, in the case of email, the remainder of people are coming online, or a bulk of the people. So you could sort of, in most of these markets that are going through these cycles, and in most cases it's not decades. Most markets will saturate in just a matter of a few years. You could not get into it for the first year or two, come in with a much better mousetrap, and still be able to capture the market as long as you do have a better mousetrap and sort of solve all the problems that the early people did not see, like pricing issues and other things that might allow you to capture market share. So the next thing, and I'm not sure why this goes 2 slides at a time. All right, there we go. So The next thing that I hear all the time is with respect to building a team or outsourcing. And there's a lot of people who have great ideas for apps or various different software product ideas that they want to bring to market. And I have, in the course of the past 5-6 years as I've been active in the tech community, I've spoken with a number of people who've spent $50,000, $100,000, even $200,000 on the development of an app, and then ended up abandoning it because the product never functioned exactly the way it should. And it turns out that software is very difficult to build, especially if you're not building it yourself. So if you're thinking about building a team to build a software company, which is very, very expensive to do, or outsourcing it, which is relatively cheap to do, it's probably one-fourth, one-fifth the cost to get to sort of a V1, a lot of people will choose outsourcing. But it turns out outsourcing oftentimes, more often than not, is throwing your money away, because what happens is software is an iterative process. You have to build something and then you have to improve on it. Your first version is never going to be the right version. So it turns out that you'll be throwing a lot of that money away. And if you're outsourcing, the people will not have that continuity of thought. Your users are too far removed from the developers for them to be able to get that feedback cycle going rapidly and iterating through it. So if you're thinking about it, software company, think about it like this. What is the core competency of the company that you're building? If you're building a software company, the answer to that question better be software, right? So if you're outsourcing your software development, you're outsourcing your core competency as a software company. So what are you exactly? A sales and marketing company? That's okay. If you are, then it's best that you know that ahead of time. You're not a software company. So you might want to partner with a software company or bring in a tech co-founder, as Ali did, if you guys were here in the previous talk, and make sure that, that you get that portion of your technology addressed. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time building a software company. So as has been mentioned in previous talks as well, the clean router one was a perfect example. Building incrementally, minimum viable product, and sort of moving on and iterating quickly is one of the best pieces of advice that anyone can give with respect to developing software. You want to tackle on a small sort of set of problems, features that you can do really well with your product, solve that problem really well, get it into the hands of users, give it away for free, and I don't know why I keep going multiple slides, but give it away for free if you have to. Not if you have to, it's actually a great practice to do so. And get that feedback, build on it, release again, and do that whole cycle over again. And the reason you want to give it away for free, and a lot of people sort of resist this, and there's a lot of advice out there by people who say, don't give your product away for free, people will not have value for it, you need to charge from the beginning, you need to have a business model. And those are great pieces of advice. I haven't found them to work very well in the software business. But the reason is because of similar sort of, back to that graph of market growth, is that if you're entering the market, let's say at the right time, between, if you can release early, get feedback between the first year of development, so let's say that's between that time frame and then the first, let's go to here, the number of users that come online in that time frame is a small fraction of the entirety of the market. So if you can establish yourself as a leader, capture market share, you can keep that market share going, keep your product free for all of the existing users so you don't do a bait and switch on anybody, or gradually increase their price to a normal price. But what's more important is that you're going to capture a bigger piece of the next group of people who are coming online for your product category. And as you capture this next piece, that's when you start charging and actually have a very significant and fast-growing presence, right? So that's why you should give away your product for free initially as you're sort of going through it. And it also does another thing which is quite interesting, which is similar to putting a beta sticker as the Clean Router guys did, is that people are a lot more tolerant to free products not working exactly as they should. Now, even if they're paying $10 a month for it, they are very, very critical. So it works out really nicely. The last lesson that I want to talk about a little bit is experiment with pricing. With software, you can sell the same product for free, 10 bucks a month, $100 a month, $1,000 a month, $100,000 a month if you, depending on the number of customers that you want to have. And all of those prices are actually valid for software because literally it takes millions of dollars to create most products. So if you're only going to have tens of customers, you should be selling your product for hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to make a profitable company. But if you're going to have millions of users, then you probably could get away with very close to free or near free, $5, $10, or whatever. And what you want to do is experiment with pricing, especially if you don't know the size of your market. You could experiment with pricing all the time and sort of get things right. Now, there's certain things that you can do, like experimenting with pricing starting from low to going high, which are relatively easy to do. Going from high, if you already have revenues, down to low is very, very difficult to do. So it might be good to start the other way around. One example of a company that went from high to low is Apple. Apple had a product called Web Objects when they acquired Next from Steve Jobs back in the late 90s. They sold this product for $50,000 a license. And overnight they decided, oh, let's sell it for $500 and see what happens. Of course, they cut the revenue from that product significantly, the existing revenue, but the volume went up very, very rapidly as a result. And it gave Web Objects more of a chance to be successful. Eventually it failed and they sort of canned it, but just an example of a pricing experiment. Google has bought companies before that have charged hundreds of dollars for their product and then made them free, like Google Analytics. Used to be another product that was $400 a month as an entry fee, and now everyone has it for free. Super interesting, right? So you want to experiment with pricing, and what I want to do is share with you some of the experimentation we've done with pricing, and then we'll go into Q&A right after that. So with PureChat, we started for free, and we did this sort of exact same thing where we gave away our product for free, had lots and lots of users. We had over 100,000 accounts signed up for PureChat before we ever charged a single dollar for the product. Then we came in from the bottom. We wanted to charge as little as possible. So we charged $5 per user per month and then established an average revenue per customer of, which is, by the way, something you should know, average revenue per customer, ARPC or ARPU per user, of $11 per month because our average customers were getting 2-point-something users per customer. After a few months of doing that, then we decided, okay, let's add another pricing plan, $8 per month, where we tweaked some features. We said, okay, if you wanted the Powered by PureChat to not be there, we're going to charge you $8 per month for that, and minimum is 2 users per account for signing up for the $8 plan. And our average revenue per customer jumped to $16 per customer, a 50% growth increase in our growth rate, essentially. And your question should be, well, did that do anything to conversion rates? Because if you converted fewer customers, then it might not be worth it. And the answer is that there wasn't any noticeable change to our conversion rate. So we did that for a few months. And the next thing we did is we came up with a sort of set of buckets where we said, okay, if you have up to 3 users, our entry plan is $15 per month. It's still $5 per user per month, but we charge you for 3 right off the bat. The next bucket is 6 users, and the bucket after that is 15 users. And in fact, those are newer experiments. We did 10 users and 25 users. And we wanted to see what would happen if we did this type of a plan, because if our average revenue per customer was 16, we wanted to see how do we move that average revenue up a little bit. And it turned out that our average revenue per customer shot up to $30 per customer, almost double. So our growth rate overnight doubled just like that. And of course, the question of whether or not it affected our conversion rate was answered by this. It actually increased conversions, which we were kind of surprised about. Now, the increase in conversions is kind of hard to explain. We don't know exactly the reasons for it, but we have a bunch of theories, right? Well, the product guys think it's the product, the support guys think it's the support, the marketing people think it's all the marketing and content efforts that we're doing, which is all probably true. But one other thing that happened is that we were now giving away more users per account type. And it might have been that $5 or $15 is just such a low barrier to entry that that didn't affect business people's decision because it's a business product. So at $15, if you already have 3 users, you're more likely to add your 3 users and add a couple of other people to respond to chats. And therefore, you get more usage out of the product for a relatively low price, rather than having to think about whether or not you want to add your next employee as another user of PureChat. So we had these sort of like interesting things that have developed as a result of pricing experiments. And we have many pricing experiments we're going to do, but just sort of giving you a taste of things that we've done. One other thing about pricing experiments is that you want to do them without affecting existing customers. So because we're moving price, inching it upwards in some ways, we're keeping all of our existing customers on the old plans, we call them legacy plans, without affecting them. So our average revenue for total customers hasn't doubled, but our growth rate has doubled, meaning like the new customers we're adding are paying us more. And as a result, the growth rate has doubled. So in summary, there's 5 things that I talked about: market timing fit, building a team as opposed to outsourcing, developing products incrementally, giving it away initially to get sort of your initial early adopter feedback, and cycling through that iteratively, building the product iteratively, and then experimenting with pricing. All right, thank you very much.